I felt like I was not really valuing myself as a human being. And with that, sort of realization, I'm like, well, how am I going to do any work in this community if I don't value myself? You can't just allow yourself to be paralyzed by inaction because you're scared of what other people will think of you. Every experience teaches you how to become a better version of yourself. And so when you approach life in that way, you're able to sort of squeeze all the juice from the fruit.
From SGI USA, I'm Cassidy Bradford, and this is Buddhability, the weekly series where I talk with Buddhists from all walks of life about the power we each have to change our lives and the world around us. Welcome to Buddhability. Set 'em, how did you say? Set 'em up? No, set 'em off.
Like set 'em off, yeah.
Like set 'em off, okay. Well, welcome to Buddhability. I'm really looking forward to hearing more about your story, getting bits and pieces, but being able to really dive deep now I'm looking forward to. So as always, we start with an introduction. So I just have guests introduce themselves. So you can tell me just a little bit about who you are, and then maybe just a little bit of your life growing up.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Sedem Adiabu, as you said, and I grew up in both Ghana and in New Jersey. I spent the early primary school part of my years in Ghana living with my grandmother. And then, once I started the fourth grade, I moved to New Jersey and started living with my mom. At the time, my parents were divorced, but they both practiced Buddhism, Nichiren Daishonin Buddhism. So, it was always something that I knew about, but depending on where I lived and who I was with, I would either go to Buddhist meetings or I would go to church with my grandmother.
Wow. Oh, I didn't realize that you had spent your early years in Ghana. What was the transition like? I mean, I imagine huge culture shock, but I'm curious what your experience was.
Oh, yes, definitely. It was a culture shock. I came here and the first thing that hit me was the cold. the piercing cold. And of course, they dressed me in a long skirt and a long shirt, but it wasn't enough to brace the New York winter. And, just generally understanding the social dynamics here. When I first came, I was very quiet, very reserved, didn't speak much because I had an accent at the time. And, I sounded like, a weird little kid, and I didn't want to not make friends. So I just assimilated as best as I could and watched a lot of cartoons and TV to understand, how the people engage.
Yeah. I mean, I think many of us, for wide variety of reasons, can relate to that experience of I just want to be I want to make friends, I want to figure out how to fit in. So anybody that's had to go to a new school, anybody who's migrated from another place, I think it's a very common experience, but of course each of us has our own unique spin on it. And what was it like not only being okay, I'm different because I wasn't born in Jersey, but then also having parents that practice Buddhism? Was there an aspect there that also made you feel oh, one more thing to make me not like everybody else?
Oh, yes, for sure. Being African and, having that different religion, because people from where I come from are usually either Christian or Muslim. And so that was a big, difference for them to to understand about me. They weren't even understanding that Buddhism exists in, African countries. And so that was another thing that made me an outcast. And so I used to hide that about me, actually, because I didn't want, like I said, to not make any friends or to be judged. I was judged for so many different things, for being different, for speaking another language, for eating different types of food. And, I didn't want religion to be another aspect of my division with people.
Was there a point as you were growing up that you started to feel more comfortable sharing that you were Buddhist, or like your own relationship with Buddhism like shifted?
Absolutely. I can say in the last 10 years, my relationship with Buddhism has significantly shifted. I've become more confident because I've seen my life transform in ways that I can't even explain. Um, and like I recently met a stranger on the street and she was like, "Oh, are you Christian?" And I was like, "No, I'm a Buddhist."
Mm.
And she was like, "What? I've never heard of African Buddhist." And I'm like, "Well, this is your first one."
We
And I was
exist.
just, yeah, and I was just so joyous and happy to share. And I didn't care about what they thought in the judgment. And I was proud of myself after because I know that before I would be, a little bit hesitant to share that about myself. But as I've grown, I've learned to just cast off all the, things of the world and just speak with my heart in any situation.
This is like a perfect transition to kind of bringing up the theme actually of today's episode, which is really about like becoming somebody that can create your own path regardless of what other people think of you, or maybe the expectations that they have, and really like believing in yourself. So I think one of the first ways that you started to find your path was like right after college when you went abroad. And maybe there might be some earlier experiences too that you want to share, but maybe you can tell me a little bit about like college time leading up to going abroad.
Yeah, sure. So I went to a college that was private and very small. I was a science major, so I was studying a lot.
Yep.
And there were many late nights studying with friends and just trying to, pass my classes.
Yeah.
And during that time, I think that's my first impact or experience of impact with Buddhism because I started to really pray or chant about what my life would look like after college. So I became very interested in Daisaku Ikeda's vision for global citizenship. And as I started to do research and learn about it and trying to figure out what is my path, I did so many internships to figure out like if I enjoyed doing these things, like as a pharmacy technician, as a lab clinician, and I wasn't enjoying it, to be honest. I felt very stuck in a box, and I felt that I had to follow, societal expectations to be either like a doctor or an engineer or a lawyer at the time. And it was very stressful. So I just started to chant about it. And during that process of chanting, I was able to realize that there's other avenues within the health sector, and that was public health. And I learned about what the different social dimensions of health, how they affect people and their health-seeking behaviors. And through the Peace Corps, I was able to apply and volunteer as a community health volunteer in Zambia. And it was one of the most transformational experiences of my life.
Wow. It's kind of wild to go from like, yeah, feeling like, okay, I'm supposed to fit myself into one of these boxes and none of them are feeling good. But then to be able to like, yeah, figure out what the next step is. And to your point, like it become one of these most transformational experiences. So I have two questions. You mentioned Daisaku Ikeda, who's, Buddhist philosopher and has, done a lot of work on global citizenship and peace building. And you mentioned sort of researching more. So my first question is just like, for anybody listening that's like, oh, global citizenship, like what does that mean, or what does that really look like from a Buddhist perspective? Could you give me like some things that really stick out to you that felt like, oh, this is like what I want to apply to whatever kind of work that I do?
Yeah, absolutely. So during that time, I also became like a fanatic of reading some of Daisaku Ikeda's words and his
Mm,
publications.
mm,
And one quote that really struck me was that, peace is the most basic structure to human advancement. And I was like, oh, wow, like that's actually true. If you have peace in your heart, you're able to exude that into your environment, and then it causes a ripple effect, and other people start to experience peace, and that causes a ripple effect. And so when I understood that concept, I understood that, wow, if we are to eliminate preventable diseases, we can share information and knowledge and do some social campaigns or just any way to get the word out so that people can take the initiative to take care of themselves rather than waiting until, whatever health situation or illness that they're experiencing becomes detrimental. And so immediately I didn't make the connection, but as I continued to volunteer and my experiences with the community that I served in, I started to realize that fundamentally we're all the same. We all desire the same things in life, and we just have different ways of communicating that. And so during my stay in Zambia, I made it a point to understand the people that I was working with. And by doing that, I had to go to all the different churches in the community, because this is where they spent most of their time on
mm.
Sundays. And so I would rotate between each church. And it was funny
Wow.
because the community members would start inviting me, like, come to our church this week, come to our church next week, come to our church.
Fighting over
And
your attention.
yeah, over which church that I should go to.
Yeah.
And I just found it truly like a blessing, to
Mm,
be able to be in such a space where I get to understand the hearts of the people and their desires. And
mm,
through doing that, it helped me create the projects together with the community in a way that,
mm.
benefited them the most.
Rather than just kind of like coming in and like, okay, these are my ideas, but really working like
Right.
together. Which is actually makes me think of like the, our Buddhist community. Like everything is like so grassroots. Like we're always working together. It's not like, one person comes in and they're like, okay, this is how we're doing it, right? Like, okay, let's
Yeah.
meet each other where we're all at. How can we create like really enjoyable, like, meetings where we're studying or chanting. So I'm like, it's interesting, like seeing the kind of like in the realm of like Buddhism or like Buddhist community, seeing how, oh, that can so easily apply in so many areas and be really impactful. Another thing that I was thinking about, a little bit further back when you were talking about college and like chanting to figure out what you wanted to do next. I'm wondering if you can just share like what that process of chanting about, like what are my next steps? Like what does that look like?
Because I was also young and I wasn't privy to all the different sectors within public health, I was just chanting to be first a good science student and then to graduate. And then from there, I was like, okay, if I can be a good science student and graduate and go to career fairs, go to seminars, and understand, like, just collect data on what's out there, then I can find whatever path that resonates with me. And so that's exactly what I did. I went to a career fair and I met with a Peace Corps recruiter at that career fair. And she gave me the opportunity to intern as a Peace Corps campus ambassador. And when I did that, I got to learn so much more about the Peace Corps beyond what you would read online and just engage with the Peace Corps' goals. And it's similar to, the global citizenship goals.
And I know that like it was a very transformational experience, and you said it was also challenging in some ways, like you had some roadblocks to being able to figure out like how you can contribute or like being able to actually make contributions. So can you tell me a little bit about that?
Sure. So the first barrier for me was language. So
Oh.
serving in Zambia, there's so many different languages, and I got
Hmm.
put into a language group called Ichibemba.
Hmm.
Bemba is close to Swahili, and
Hmm.
so I had to learn within the first 6 months this language because of my skin color as well. People assumed that I was from there and that I
Hmm.
should already know the language. And so
Oh.
interacting with people in my immediate environment was sometimes frustrating because they had already put me into this box that I
Hmm.
thought, oh, I just got here and I'm still learning just like the other volunteers. But, because of my skin color, I'm treated a little bit differently,
Hmm.
and much more is expected of me.
Hmm.
And coincidentally enough, Daisaku Ikeda talks about this in some of his writing, where he shares
Hmm.
that it's like the training for your life. Every
Hmm.
experience teaches you how to become a better version of yourself.
Hmm.
And so when you approach life in that way, you're able to sort of squeeze all the juice from the fruit. Yeah,
Yeah.
and enjoy a fruitful experience. And that's why
Hmm.
it was so rewarding for me, because with that first challenge of language, I went straight to my bed and I was just chanting.
Hmm.
And I remember chanting, "Oh, please let me pass this language exam so they can post me into my
Hmm.
community." And on the day of the test, I was just speaking, and the instructors were amazed at how much my language skills had developed in the few weeks,
Wow.
because I was just so determined, like, I have to understand this language because they can't send me back home.
After all this, they cannot send me back home.
They
That's so
can't send me
funny.
back home. I have to win. So it was all or
Hmm.
nothing, but it was also proof to me that, oh my goodness, I really can tackle any challenge with this tool. And with
Hmm.
my sincerity of my heart, it's, the victory is guaranteed. Sometimes I
Hmm.
forget that. And that's
Yeah.
that's the that's the process of chanting, where it brings you back to that reminder. So I was very grateful for that experience. Another challenge was when I got posted to my community. It was the same thing. They were expecting like a white volunteer because that's what they had been used to seeing over the years. Um, but I came in and I remembered Daisaku Ikeda's words of just be yourself. And I was just myself. Like, I explained that I have roots in Ghana, but I'm also American and I'm just like you. I'm African just like you. We eat similar foods, we just cook it a little bit differently. And explaining America, the diversity of America. It's not just one type of people in America. And I got to share that with my community and,
Hmm.
just make incredible friendships throughout the 2 years that I was there.
Wow, 2 years is a long time to be like. I mean, 2 years is like graduate school or different kind of, maybe not an internship, different like projects or whatever. But I think 2 years to be in another place and be doing like really on the ground work is like, man, it's a lot, and I imagine kind of like intensive. What was your Buddhist practice like at the time? Like, are there SGI Buddhists in Zambia?
Oh, absolutely. So my practice when I initially got there was kind of wavy because
Yeah.
it was a time zone difference, and then also I had to adjust to all the different activities they had lined for
Mm-hmm.
us. And so it wasn't until I got to my community that I started, chanting more frequently and more
Mm-hmm.
consistently. But what prompted me to chant was actually kind of interesting because I just felt this void in my life. And
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh my goodness, what is going on that I just keep seeing patterns of like self doubt or patterns of like, you know, pitying myself. And I've, had all these wonderful experiences. And I felt like I was not really
Yeah.
valuing myself as a human being. And with that, sort of realization, I'm like, well, how am I going to do any work in this community if I
Yeah.
don't value myself? And so I started chanting about that
Hmm.
just to value myself, just to even be consistent with my practice because it wasn't as consistent as I would have liked it to be.
What would you say, like, beginning of the 2 years and end of the 2 years, like, the difference that you felt in, like, maybe the way that you viewed yourself?
Mm, that's a really good question. I think I definitely gained more confidence. I became unswayed by other people's opinions, and
Hmm.
that for me was really about my transforming my own negative tendencies
Yeah.
because it's something that I continuously, even now, it comes up
Yeah.
sometimes. It never goes away, but it's something that I continuously struggle with is what do people think of me, and why do I care so much about what they think of me?
Yes.
Yeah, it's like what is the root of that? And just unpacking that each and every time that I experience that feeling, it's like, okay, I have the tools to like really understand why this is happening. And I still, sometimes allow it to like get in the way of, my
Yeah.
next thing. But ultimately, what I've learned is that no matter what, if you just keep taking one action or one step, something will shift, something will transform. But you can't just allow yourself to be paralyzed by inaction because you're scared of what other people will think of you. And that's been helping me really align my life with the vision that I have for myself. And just being okay with not knowing the end result, but knowing that I will get there at some point. If I keep striving day after day, I will get there. And that makes me feel more content.
That's interesting. Yeah. Being able to like have confidence that like, okay, I may not be exactly where I want to be at this moment, but I feel confident that as long as I keep just doing one action at a time that I will get there. I definitely think like, yeah, because it can be so easy if you're like, okay, the gap between my dreams and reality is just so huge that I don't even want to take a step,
Mm,
or you're so concerned about how other people are perceiving like what your dreams are or what your life should look like that being so consumed with it means you're not taking any action at all. In my experience, chanting is the tool that like before I start chanting, I could be so worried about something or like, oh, maybe I shouldn't do this, or, so and so has some kind of judgment about me. I'm sure of it, and then I chant just really open heartedly, like, okay, these are all of my worries. And by the end, I'm always like, oh, actually, yeah, I don't think that they're thinking this bad thing about me. Or even if they are, who cares? Like, actually, I don't believe that about myself. Or maybe I realize,
mhm,
oh, I'm actually holding so much, like, negative feelings about myself that like
Mm,
that's actually the problem. It doesn't matter what other people think. Like it's my own view of myself. But anyway, like always after chanting, there's something that I feel like is really shifted. So, you know, after thinking now moving to the then next sort of phase of your life, which, you know, you finish 2 years in Peace Corps, and I know that you went to school after that. What was the process like of deciding? Were you facing any doubt? Did you feel really confident?
yeah, sure. So like I said, I really enjoyed my experience in the Peace
Yeah.
Corps in Zambia, and it really opened my eyes to the different avenues within public health.
Yeah.
So I had sort of this practical experience, but I didn't have the language to communicate it or articulate how this helps people globally.
Yeah.
So I was seeking, okay, what is the next thing that I can do to turn these skills into something tangible and make a career
Mm-hmm.
out of it? Because I truly did enjoy doing the grassroots level work and
Mm-hmm.
engaging with people. I think that's the one thing that I was craving
Hmm.
with my science background is that social dimension of being able to
Mm-hmm.
like interact with communities and you know, experience how we can transform our health
Hmm.
together. So I started doing research about my 1.5 years into my service.
Okay.
And through that research, I was looking at different programs, different universities that offered what I was looking for. And I was really nervous about applying to Emory University because I thought,
Mm.
oh my goodness, it's top 3 public health university in America. I don't know if I'll make it.
Yeah.
But I just chatted about it and I
Mm.
said, hey, what do I have to lose? Because this is something that I really want in my life. And
Mm.
so I'm just going to go for it. And so, with the help of my friends and just the wonderful, my husband,
Mm.
his support as well, he was able to help me narrow down my searches. And we
Mm.
picked 4 schools to apply to. And I ended up getting into Emory, and I was just so elated. I
Mm.
remember him taking me to take my GRE exam, and I was like,
Oof.
oh my goodness, that was so awful. I came out like worried, and he was
Mm.
there and he was like, you did okay, baby. Don't worry about it. You're amazing.
Mm.
And just having that, you know, really helped me get over the worries that I was having and the self-doubt. And I was like,
Mm.
okay, I did my best at the end of the day, and we'll see
Yeah.
what happens. I did get into Emory. And, you know, that came with its own challenges because I got
Yeah.
there and I thought that I was going to be fed everything that I desired and everything
Mm-hmm.
was just going to come to me and I didn't have to I didn't
Yep.
have to do any work because, you know, I had thought of this plan and oh, I'm just going to go now get all the theory and
Mm-hmm.
I have the practical, so there's
Yep.
nothing else. But I
Easy.
got there. I got there and I was like, oh my goodness, so overwhelmed. Grad school
Mm.
is its own challenge in itself, and just knowing how to study. So I had to
Mm.
relearn how to study. I felt like, wow, like my peers just communicated so much better than me. And I was struggling to
Mm.
find the words to articulate a concept or just be
Mm.
able to relay information more smoothly. So I was really feeling some self doubt in that when
Yeah.
I first got there, you know, so it's like a continuous struggle of having to like redetermine to believe in myself
Mm-hmm.
again. And, you know, once I got to Atlanta, I connected with the local Buddhist community there, and they were
Mm.
just so supportive. I also, like, you know, got a huge benefit of getting to work with the Task Force for Global Health. And I was
Mm.
working on a project called the Focus Area for Compassion and Ethics in Global Health. And I thought,
Wow.
oh my goodness, what are the odds that I get to
Yeah.
work on compassion, which is a foundation to our
Hmm.
Buddhist practice, and
Hmm.
really dive deep into the concepts of what it means to be compassionate
Hmm.
and what it means to exude compassion in global health. And so I spent
Hmm.
like 2 years really studying that and
Hmm.
understanding the paradigm or the structures within global health and how we can make those systems more compassionate. I learned so much, and I think that was the basis for my work in social determinants of health.
Hmm.
And just looking at the ways in which our societies have become so divided that we are failing to see what truly matters in terms of our health, our safety, and our livelihoods. And so I learned more about what it means to have human dignity and bringing that to my research and bringing that to my work. It was really challenging in the beginning, but things got easier and I found myself understanding where I fit in and, initially struggling with my advisors to find out what is it that I'm supposed to do. This doesn't feel right. I don't really want to put myself in a box in a specific subject area because I think that I want to be more broad to have the flexibility to work in different areas of global health. And so through chanting, I was able to discover that that's what I wanted versus just picking a specific subject and focusing on that for the whole 2 years. And so I got bits of pieces of every area, which led me to understand program management well. And through that
Hmm.
process, I was able to land my next opportunity and work in South Sudan, which was a huge benefit.
Oh wow. Oh my gosh. How did you like have the courage and just like self-confidence to be like, okay, I know that you want to put me in this little box, but I don't want to do that. Like, I don't know, when I've had to like work with faculty or advisors or people that have like, more experience than me, I feel like, oh well, maybe I'm wrong. Like they must know
Mm,
better. You know,
mm.
how did you have the confidence to be like, no, this is what I'm going to do?
Wow. Okay. So that's an interesting question because I have been, exploring that in myself as well, like
Mm,
self-reflecting. And I think Daisaku Ikeda's message about really being the main character in your own story
mm,
or in your own movie, which is
mm,
life, helped me see that I'm the one driving this, right? If
mm,
I decide I want to let somebody else drive, I might get to a different destination and I might not be happy with the scenery. Like I might want to see a
mm.
beach and they drive me to the mountains and I'm like, why am I here? I wanted to I wanted to see the beach and
Yeah.
and also
Mm,
having the courage to understand and listen to myself. Like, I know what I
mm,
enjoy and I know how I operate and what works well. And so, listening to other people, sure, I do listen and try to understand the lessons behind what they're sharing. But ultimately, my life is mine to decide. And I have my experiences. I have, my quirks. I do the things that I do a certain way. And that's what leads me to where I am now. And even the painful experiences that I've had in life have, fortified who I am today. And so I can't just get rid of that and try to follow a different path. And so that's where I start from. It's where can I offer value and what value can be offered to me. But it's very fundamental in our Buddhist practice that wherever we find ourselves, we want to create value. And so with that in mind, wherever I find myself, even if the experience isn't what I thought it would be,
mm,
I make sure that I'm finding a way to create value so that I leave wherever I was better than where I found it.
Hmm. Wow. I'm like I'm still thinking about that. Like if somebody else drives me to the mountains and like I want to see the beach, I'm like, "Oh my gosh. Yes." Like of course to your point, like we still listen to what people have to say, but ultimately it's really about like our own life and what's going to make us happy. Where can we contribute? Like I love that idea of like even thinking like, oh, okay, I can chant about like what are the great qualities that I have and like where how can I really contribute when I'm like so concerned about what other people are thinking about me. Like my own sense of self and my internal voice is like almost muted. You know, it's like
Yeah.
so quiet. But as I chant, it's like I'm turning up the volume on my inner voice, you know? I'm like, okay, turning the
Yeah.
volume down on this to get that kind of like clarity. One question I had about like working on this task force and like focusing on compassion in public health, how did you then and how do you now like maintain hope? Because I
Mm.
think, you know, for many people, especially like academics, when you're like really getting into the thick of like, oh, here are how all of the ways that things are broken and all of the ways that things are really hard, and you're trying to do work that's like deeply transformational and like real sustainable change. I imagine sometimes it can be discouraging. I just wonder, like, how do you maintain hope in the face of
Mm.
that in the work that you're doing?
Mm. That's an excellent question. Yeah, it was very discouraging
Hmm.
because to sort of bring out the tenets of compassion, you have to understand why it doesn't exist and where it doesn't
Oof.
exist in
Hmm.
our community of global health practitioners, researchers, and physicians and whatnot. And so one of the things that was going on was the COVID-19 pandemic at the time. And
Oh my,
in
what a time
yeah.
to be studying public health. Whoa.
Right. So that's, when I was studying, doing my master's
Wow.
degree. We only had one semester in the classroom, and then
Hmm.
after we transitioned to just be at home. And so that came with its own challenges. But on the global stage, we also witnessed division. We also
Hmm.
witnessed more and more polarization. And we witnessed inequities in terms of like different, you know, regional areas getting
Hmm.
vaccines and buying all the vaccines, and other
Hmm.
regions not getting any at all. And
Hmm.
others are on booster shots while others didn't even have an opportunity to get
Hmm.
vaccinated. And
Hmm.
so when you start to see the realities and, have a vision for where we would like this
Hmm.
practice or this community to be at, it can be very discouraging. But I think for me, what kept the hope alive was seeing other practitioners embody this concept of compassionate action.
Hmm.
And, taking that action means alleviating suffering. And how do we
Hmm.
alleviate suffering? Sometimes alleviating suffering looks like doing the research to understand who in the global community is doing investigative work in this area, who is providing medicines to, neglected areas or regions in the world,
Hmm.
and who can we partner with and, really form a shared vision to challenge this health inequality. And so when you see that there are options, it's hard to
Hmm.
remain in a space of hopelessness because you see other people doing it, and you want to be part of those people who are doing the work and not part of the
Hmm.
people who are complaining and not doing
Hmm.
anything, And
Hmm.
so, how do we get past this friction and this division in society? It's through our mindsets. And as we
Hmm.
change our mindsets, we can also develop that courage and that conviction that no matter what, we can rely on each other because we have the same shared goal, which is to survive on
Hmm.
this earth and
Hmm.
share, this experience of life together. Um, But when we look at all the negatives, we tend to see more problems than there are solutions.
Hmm.
So I think that was something that I held on to. And of course, I didn't feel this all the time. Like,
Yeah.
I'm so thankful for my SGI, my Buddhist community in
Mm-hmm.
Atlanta, who helped me when I was struggling. I mean,
Hmm.
one time I came to a meeting and just started bawling because my laptop crashed and I had a project due the next day. And I was
Ooh.
hysterical. Like, I
Yeah.
hadn't even experienced that version of myself before. And so I didn't know
Wow.
what to do because I just was so anxious. And it was in the pandemic. So there were
Mm-hmm.
less places. I couldn't go to a library to do my work. But, my SGI community really helped me um, by staying with me and just chanting together
Mm-hmm.
and reassuring me that, I will be fine. I just need to take the next steps and alert my professor what had happened. And sure enough, like even just through chanting, you see some like really mystic things happening in your life where
Mm.
like the professor decided to change the due date. And I was like, what? I was stressing for no reason. And
Mm.
so having those kinds of experiences, they continue to build my confidence because I'm like,
Yeah.
if I just sit and chant about what I'm worried about, something will happen and it will no longer become a worry. And so I've held
Hmm.
on to that really tightly, especially when I don't feel like I'm very confident. But I know that
Hmm.
something's gonna happen.
The more and more that you have those experiences, even if in the moment you're like, I don't really think that anything can change, but if I look back at my life, I know that every time I chant about something, that something shifts, whether it's in my heart or, in my environment. And I think that too, like having our Buddhist community is like also helps remind us, like, okay, this has happened before. Maybe not this exact thing, but you've had many moments where you like didn't believe in yourself, right? So let's
Mhm.
keep going. So after you finished school, I know now you're in Virginia and you're working and you have some other projects also on the side. So what was like the transition from graduate school to now, and like what are you doing now?
Actually, a lot of the side projects that I have came about because I struggled finding a job when I graduated.
Oh, okay.
So it was within the thick of the pandemic when I graduated,
Mhm.
and a lot of companies weren't hiring, and so
Mhm.
I was really chanting to create value in that season of my life. And so I had always had this vision to bring African artistries into the global marketplace so people can be exposed to all the different um, art collections, fashion, jewelry, and
Mhm.
just incredible, like unique items that exist on the continent. And
Mm.
so during my travels, I started buying and collecting from local women in the markets
Mm.
because this was their income generating
Mhm.
activities. This is how they fed their families. And so I always bought locally so that I could showcase their work to the world. And so through those
Mm.
collections, I started building out this business. And so during that season, I focused on building that brand and just,
Mm.
selling and going to different festivals and like vending. And
Mm.
it also was, a way for me to uh, not be dissuaded because I had just
Mm.
finished this huge accomplishment, which was getting my master's, and I couldn't find a job.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to like fall into like depression. And so I
Mm.
found an outlet that made sense to me at the time.
Mm.
And during that process, I was able to get a job. And that job is what led me to South Sudan. And when I came back,
Mm.
I struggled again to find another job. And
Wow.
so I started building my second project, which is my consulting business. Um, and just chanting. In that time, I was chanting for a career that was beautiful. It provided benefit and it did good. I was really chanting for that. And I only waited about 3 months before I was offered my current job, which I was offered on my birthday. And it was
Ah!
such a it was such a surprise because I became comfortable in a way of just working on
Hmm.
my different projects and just doing my Buddhist activities and just fortifying my life force. So like
Hmm.
my life force at the time was kind of dull because
Hmm.
I kept having rejection after rejection. But
Hmm.
when I started to like, connect with other members in the Buddhist
Hmm.
community, and I heard someone's experience about changing their career,
Hmm.
and I was like, oh, if she can do it, I can do it too.
Yeah. Wow. Oh my gosh. I mean, I didn't realize that you had started those other two businesses while you were trying to find a job. Like, that to me is like crazy because it's already like so, for many of us, like really tiring, discouraging to be doing a job search, and then you're like, all right, I'm actually gonna like do my own thing two times over. Wow. Did you have any like resistance either from like other people being like, "Oh, I don't know if you should do these. They're not good business ideas, whatever," or like internally, did you like grapple with any self-doubt?
Mm. So actually, during that time, this was a practice I probably shouldn't have done, but I self-isolated.
Oh, yep, we've all been there.
Yeah, I self-isolated and didn't really share my struggles with the people in my
Hmm.
life at the time because it was two things. One, people always assume that because you appear confident or you appear like you know what you're doing, that you're good. But sometimes you're not good, and sometimes you just are lost and you need a friend to talk to. I was still learning how to tap into my community and the different relationships that I have. So at the time, to be honest, I just self isolated and focused like tunnel vision on what I wanted to build. But then I also took the time to learn about why I use this coping mechanism, and it led back to my like fundamental darkness, which is like caring too much of what people think. And I remember thinking like, oh, they're gonna think that she's, stupid, because why would you get a master's degree and not even have anything to do with it? Or like they'll think that like, oh, she doesn't have her life together or this or what. And I just didn't want to experience that. And so I avoided talking to people about my struggles so that I wouldn't experience that feeling of judgment. But ultimately, it was myself judging myself. So that was something that I was working through on myself during that time. And so while it appears that I produced these two wonderful projects, I was deeply, unlearning some fundamental truths about myself. And that experience helped me now because I am able to do the opposite because I know what I do in that moment. So I do the opposite now because I don't want to continue suffering. So I'm gonna call on a friend, a Buddhist member, and just cry and tell them everything I'm going through.
Hmm.
And I don't care if they judge me because I'm not gonna judge myself anymore. So
Yeah.
that's how I got through that moment in my life.
Wow. That sounds like, for me, like this perfect example of like how our challenges in our life can become actually so beneficial for us. I think like it sounds to me like, okay, you're going through this time of just like really criticizing yourself, isolating, but then because you were chanting, you started to uncover like, oh, wait a second, this is what's happening. Starting to see yourself more clearly, because I think sometimes like I think for all of us, and no matter like how long you practice Buddhism, we have sort of like our blind spots, right? Like things that we don't realize that we're doing that are like totally self-sabotaging and like totally preventing us from breaking through. And like because we chant, we can start to see those things clearly. And it sounds like now you have that shift, really, that like, okay, I'm not going to judge myself. I'm going to go straight to like seeking from a friend and like getting somebody to chant with me because like, you know, I don't want to continue in that kind of cycle that's preventing me. So, was there like anything that, you know, you read or like Buddhist concepts that have given you courage, like to go after your dreams?
So this is from Daisaku Ikeda, and he shares that on account of our faith in Nichiren Buddhism, from time to time we may encounter unpleasantries from others. We may also find ourselves working harder than many around us, but this is part of our Buddhist practice. Our practice enables us to achieve an expansive state of being in which we can enjoy everything in life. And so for me, I focused on like the long-term goal for myself. One of the things that got me chanting was, you know, my experiences of being an outcast and just not fitting in or belonging into the community that I found myself. And I had to work to build that confidence in myself. But I think in doing that, it helped me understand that tendency in others. And we all struggle with feeling confident. We all struggle with believing in ourselves. And as I chanted, I think I came to understand what it is that I want to do in life, and that is to help others to be able to develop that belief in themselves, and you know that we all can be happy, we all can live a fulfilling life, and all we need is to just develop the tools to get to the point where we can say, okay, I can do this. And for me, reading that assured me that, okay, no matter what, I could apply these concepts to myself and others in my work as well. And once I figured out that all the areas of my life were like synergizing, they were in harmony, then I started to say, this might be where my mission lies. And so I'm going to keep chanting to uncover whatever is next for me. And that's how I continue to take Daisaku Ikeda's teachings into the vision of my life.
Wow. It's like been so enjoyable like listening
Oh,
to you, and yeah, it's been really incredible. So before we, you know, totally wrap things up, I always finish interviews asking for a piece of advice from our guest. So I'm wondering what advice you would give to someone. They're coming to you and they're like feeling like, oh my gosh, I just like don't think that I can really do it. So they're really doubting themselves, or maybe they're also facing doubt from others. What advice would you give to them?
the advice I would give is to follow your heart, right? And so whenever we have an inkling about something, usually we're the first to see what's going on. Like we're the first to feel something. And I know that in our society right now, people want to shy away from feelings, but feelings are indicators for our lives. And so pay attention to what is in your heart and dig deeper to understand like what is the root cause, or what is it there that I really am feeling. And when you do that, you're able to just see, at least start to see what is it. And the next step, I would encourage you, even if you don't believe, to chant Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. because it brings out the best qualities in ourselves, but it also brings out the bad qualities in ourselves. So when you see both of them, you see yourself wholly, and then you're able to truly tackle what it is that you need to do. But when you don't see yourself fully, it's hard to understand what you want to do because other people are bringing their opinions and their thoughts, and sometimes it might be projections onto your life. But it's important to really pay attention to what your heart is telling you and then train your mind to listen to your heart and move back and forth, right? We have to respect both the mind and the heart.